Oh, everything's just beeping and buzzing here.
Okay, great. I think we're ready to start.
Go ahead. Over
Yeah.
to Danielle.
Okay, great. So welcome everybody to the Indigenous Homes Innovation Initiative IHI webinar, tools designed to support success today. So today we have myself, Danielle Lightning, Cando Special Projects Director, and also Olive Crane from the Abegweit Passive Solar Housing Complex project with us today. So the two of us will be participating in the webinar today. So welcome everybody. I'm just going to go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So for my part of the webinar, I'm just going to do an overview. And so this is what I'll go through today. So the IHI background, Cando's role, selected projects, focus areas, the IHI circle, accelerator launch event, the implementation, and then partners and useful links. Next slide. All right, so the background of IHI, or Indigenous Homes Innovation Initiative. So it's a 5-year program. There's 36 million allocated for this federal program. It's funded by Indigenous Services Canada and Infrastructure Canada, developed under the support of the Privy Council Office Impact and Innovation Unit, and delivered in partnership with Cando. So the initiative aims to find and support First Nation, Inuit, Métis Nation innovators who have housing ideas for rural, urban, or remote Indigenous communities. The initiative is based on a simple yet powerful idea that the best solutions come from those who live the problem every day. So, residents of Indigenous communities understand the housing-related challenges they face, and the initiative taps into this understanding to inspire Indigenous peoples to propose and develop effective solutions. So the selected innovators will be receiving funding for both the development of their ideas and also may receive funding for the implementation of their projects. This initiative launched in April 2019 with the call for ideas. August 2019, the applications closed, and in January 2019, the accelerative phase began. So the IHI process involves or includes the Indigenous Steering Committee, which you'll see in the picture there, and also names from left to right. I believe the 6 members that are in the steering committee. So the steering committee involvement, they reviewed and evaluated all of the innovative ideas. The committee is composed of those six prominent Indigenous individuals, whom you can also find more details on Impact Canada website. I'll share that link at the end of this presentation. So essentially, the IHI program is split into 2 phases: accelerative phase. So 6 million allocated to this phase, and this is the phase where innovators will work on refining their ideas, their project ideas, and they have until August 2021 to complete complete a framework in order to move forward into the next phase, which is the implementation phase. This phase, there is 30 million allocated to this phase. And this is where if the projects meet the project ideas meet eligible criteria, they will then access funding to support the implementation of their idea. So just gonna take a quick look. So in total, there was 342 applications, and out of that 342, the 24 were selected to move forward into the accelerator phase. So that's just a little background. Going forward, I'm going to explain a bit more about Cando's role. So if you can go to the next slide. Great. Okay, so Cando, which is Council for the Advancement of Native Development Officers, is a national Indigenous organization involved in Indigenous community economic development. So Cando is working in partnership with ISK to deliver the IHI program. Cando coordinated the Accelerator launch event, which I'll share more details about in a second, which was held in January 2020, and now is managing all of the funding agreements for the partners and also the selected innovators. So in supporting with the Indigenous Steering Committee's work and review process, that is also part of Cando's role. So myself, along with the Cando team, I think Elizabeth Calhason is on the call with us today. She's part of the Cando team that works still on the IHI project. Cando works in partnership with IST to share updates publicly about progress and selected projects. So you'll see their social media schedule on various platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn as well. All right, so moving forward to the next slide, please. So with the selected projects, out of the 24, there's a lot of different great ideas. I'll share where you can find all of their project pages and where you can access their updates, on their progress and anything like that they're updating on. But just to give you an idea of what they are and some of the ideas, I'll just run through a few of them. So this is the one that's on with us today. So Abegweit First Nation is this project is a multi-unit passive solar housing complex in PEI. There's also, out of the projects, is affordable mixed housing complex in Vancouver's downtown east side. There's also a project for home repair and maintenance education program and innovative model to procure housing materials in Fort Good Hope, so Northwest Territories. There's one in Saskatoon, for Métis elders around residents with wraparound health and cultural support services for Métis elders. A healing lodge for Indigenous women transitioning from correction facilities to community in Scarborough, Ontario. So just to name a few, there's tons. So in the next slide, yeah, you can go to the next one. So this one here, the focus areas, you can see there's 6 there, and I'll share where you can find these as well. So you can go into more detail about each of the 24 projects, and also it shows you the different areas of focus as well. So out of the 6, there's traditional First Nation, Inuit or Métis Nation building styles and techniques, using the home for empowerment, capacity building, and support for local businesses, support for vulnerable populations, culturally inspired urban spaces for First Nation, Inuit, and Métis Nation people, security, safety, and accessibility, and then lastly, energy independence and efficiency. So those are the 6 focus areas. You can move to the next slide, please. So here you'll see the link at the top there. So the iHi Circle. So this is the platform that was created with Indigenous Clean Energy. So on this platform, you'll find a variety of different information, such as the iHi program itself. You'll find all the project pages. They share project stories. And also different webinars that are featured as well. And so I would definitely, if you haven't yet, sign up as a member. So there's a link at the top. So just a little bit more about this. So the accelerator period is supported by a number of partners, including ICE or Indigenous Clean Energy. And progress over this phase will be posted on progress over the accelerator phase is posted on this iHi Circle. So it's basically a community of practice for those addressing the housing needs of Indigenous people in Canada. As mentioned, there's monthly webinars, helpful resources, including a project assessment tool to help you assess the readiness of a community project, which Olive will go over in a few minutes here. Also discussion forums, so you find all different kinds of resources there that you can tap into. So moving forward to the next slide. So Accelerator launch event. So this launch event was a 4-day intensive workshop at the beginning of this program where we brought the innovators, the mentors all together, including the lead innovators. So basically the projects all together once they were selected. In total, there was 100 participants. And this was in January 2020 when we were able to meet, I guess, before everything. So, I mean, it was a great event in Parksville, BC. It was great for everyone to see each other, and there was intensive workshops throughout the 4 days there. Yeah, so the mentor, just to explain a little bit about the mentor. So the mentor is a member of the RAIC, so Royal Architectural Institute of Canada's Indigenous Task Force. So a designate identified through the RAIC ITF network or an expert with expertise relevant to the selected project was selected to support the lead and innovator and co-lead in their accelerator phase. So a strong community of practice building component throughout the whole event, those 4 days, planning for Indigenous impact tools were presented, as well as the framework to guide them through the accelerator phase and their ideas. Next slide. Next slide. I just talked about the launch event. So next one, yeah, thank you. So accelerator to implementation. So here, as mentioned, there's the two phases, accelerator and implementation phase or construction phase. So in order to move forward to the implementation phase, projects have to complete a framework, so control framework submissions. There's a review process involved that involves the IHI steering committee, Cando, and also ISC. So that process involved to move forward. So next slide. So there's several projects that are actually into the implementation phase now. So you can see here there is 6 of them there, 3, 6, and more moving forward. So this is just a quick little update of progress with the projects moving forward. So I'm just gonna kind of give you some background on those 6, just to give you an idea of what they are, and then hopefully you'll go into the iHi circle and see their pictures and videos and other articles that they're uploading on there. So first one, Muscogwan First Nation. So this is a family healing and wellness center that allowed First Nation families to stay together, promoting a culturally responsive approach to healing intergenerational trauma. The center will have 3 family log homes with 2 to 4 bedrooms, as well as a 4th for a healing program delivery. The First Nation will operate the center with support from elders, counselors, and professional staff. The center will provide a welcoming, home-like environment where families in crisis are referred to the center and can get the support they need to heal together. Pekanjikam First Nation. So this is a building, an 8 residential unit community safe village that will provide safe, transitional, and emergency housing with professional and culturally sensitive support for community members escaping violence. The facility will also have 6 hotel units available from a separate entrance for those visiting the community and to generate revenue to support the operation and maintenance of the community safe village. Luma Housing Society, Luma Native Housing Society. So this one is in Vancouver, BC. It's building an affordable Indigenous-led and owned mixed-use housing complex for Indigenous community in Vancouver's downtown east side. This complex will include a healing center, food center, health and well-being center, and supported adult housing units, affordable rental units for low-income families. Thunder Women Healing Lodge. So this one is in Toronto, Ontario. It's a building, a 6-story complex with 24 affordable housing units for Indigenous women transitioning from corrections facility to the community. In addition, it'll offer counseling supports and support to help residents along long-term housing options. Excuse me. So next one, so Central Urban Métis Federation, Inc. This is Saskatchewan, so Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, a building the Round Prairies Elder Lodge, a 3-story complex with 26 one-bedroom units. The facility will also offer wraparound health and cultural supports. The residents will enable Métis seniors to live independently in an environment that provides services to address age-related issues. And then lastly, North Bay Indigenous Friendship Center, so North Bay, Ontario. It's a building, a 3-floor, 30 single-unit transitional housing facility called Suspen Village. It will provide safe, accessible, dignified housing for Indigenous community members who are ready to leave the emergency shelter system. There's tons more details to share about these 6 projects, but just in a little nutshell to explain a little bit about each one. So moving forward from there, next slide. So here you can see all of the iHi partners that have been with us since the launch, and some of them continuing on as we move forward to the implementation phase. Next slide. Here you'll find all the useful links. So the Impact Canada link, you can find the 21st selected projects, as well as details on the Indigenous Steering Committee. And then the second link there is the iHi circle. So that brings you right to that ICE platform, and you can find where each of the projects update on their progress, articles, all that kind of stuff, including webinars that we offer and any tools that you have access to, which is the third link there. So just a direct link to the Indigenous impact tools. So I believe that's about it for my part, and I'm just going to introduce Olive Crane from Abegweit Passive Solar Housing Project. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. It's a beautiful day here on the East Coast. We're a Mi'kmaq community and we're located in Prince Edward Island. Next slide, please. On this slide, it actually shows who makes up, we have 3 reserves here. We have one in Rocky Point, one in Morel, Prince Edward Island, and our 3rd and biggest reserve is where our projects taken place in Scotchford. Next slide. Today, as Danielle mentioned, I'm going to explain a little bit about 2 tools that we found really helpful as we moved our project along. And I must say, when we originally applied for the project back in August of 2019, we did not have these particular tools and they would have come in really handy. So when we were introduced to them in January of last year, it was one of those light bulb moments that we thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be a godsend. Because for our community, we're really small and we had never gone through a large capital project before. Next slide, please. So for us, we wanted to share who we are. And this comes out loud and clear when you're looking at why do you want to have a capital project and what kind of impact are you going to have? So in our particular community, we're really farmers and fishermen. And if you see the great picture on the left, that was taken in late April this year off one of our crab boats. We have 2 crab midshore licenses and we have 7 lobster boats. And on the right, you see the picture of the lobster boats. And on the bottom, you'll see our chief, our band 3 band counselors. And they're a real important mix in our project as well. And you'll see later when I talk about some of the tools we used and how do we access some of our resources, the leadership in this community had to become one of the assets. Next slide, please. So we have a gas bar as well as Robin's Donuts. We have a big connection to the military here. In fact, in the past, the military came and stayed 3 weeks with us and helped us build a trail in the community. We have an active forestry program and also stream enhancement program. And on the top right, those 3 gentlemen help in the area of natural resources, but also do a lot of work around emergency measures. And in the bottom right, you see a group of people that are in a room together talking in that particular case about a fishery. But later in our project, when I talk about connection to the community, often because we use this tool, we felt communication was really important. And we'd go to where community groups were meeting to share and discuss our project idea about why we want to build passive solar homes in the community. Next slide, please. This particular slide I thought was important because that first boat is loaded down with lobster traps, and that was the first start of the season this year. Again, it's the crab fishery. We threw in a picture of our powwow, and again, when we looked at trying to come up with the impact and do some time around planning, we really wanted to think about why, who in the community, how would the community benefit, and what might be the outcomes. So the next slide, please. So the 2 tools that I want to discuss today and tell you how we use them in our community and why we probably recommend them to other people. The first is the mass assessment tool for purpose built. And I included all those pictures of the community because this project for us is really about the community. And in our community, we have a young community. We have issues like other First Nation communities, housing and lack of housing and lack of quality housing. So we have a number of people in the back of the screen. You may see a person that's helping me today technically, a young man from our community. And in his case, Michael is actually a Red Seal electrician, and he lives with 3 other families in a house that was built for 1. So again, on the purpose build, we wanted to look at our community. We want to spend time looking at what is our vision, what did we want to accomplish, and why did we want to take this approach, and then what were our outcomes that we expected. And again, what I've included in the picture on that slide was actually the work that Chris and myself did when we were out in Vancouver Island in January of 2020, when we first started the process. But I recommend before you get involved in any capital project, to use these tools right away. It was still really good for us to start there, but the nice part about these tools, they're kind of alive and you can keep going back and reusing them. Next slide, please. So in our community, although we chose to build energy efficient passive solar homes, we really wanted to do something in the long term to help address long-term unemployment in our community. We have a community that has the strongest work ethic of anybody I know. So the picture you see in front of us is a group of people who are crab fishermen, lobster fishermen, forestry workers, and in some cases would end up on unemployment. And in the past in our community, we might have one new house per year, and that house was probably going to be a modular home. And we probably didn't do perk tests and things like that that really improved the quality of having healthy homes. So part of this project, when we did our visioning with the community and really why did we want to get involved in a capital project, was to create a long-term construction team, and a team that can not only build quality houses, but have a private sector business when the project's all over. The gentleman in the middle with the white hat on is a crab fisherman. He also works in housing, and he also had worked 16 years in the private sector building homes. So we really know he's one of our biggest assets. So when we looked at this project, we really wanted to help other people in the community. And a big piece of this, when we went through the process, was a number of other individuals that are unemployed. And these unemployed people often suffer from having not good affordable homes and tend to be living with 2 and 3 other families. So part of our vision included doing something for that group of unemployed people. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that a little later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So on the left, this is our mass assessment purpose build. And this, again, I took pictures of where we were at back in January of 2020. And some of it's changed for us. And in any case, as we're moving more and more to move from the accelerator phase into the implementation or construction phase, more and more of these areas become even more important. So the mission, and that should be design instead of decision there, but we knew we had a potential project. We knew we wanted to have our community goals and needs met, and we really wanted to have outcome-based. So again, that included for us choosing, why did we choose passive solar homes? And I go back to the years in this community where there's overcrowding and poor houses built. We really wanted to build something that the community would be extremely proud of, but also build something in the community that would help our dream of having our own construction team that will be able to compete in the private sector in the area of building energy efficiency homes, but really healthy homes with low maintenance costs. So for example, in our community, it's really important for some people to have low maintenance costs. And those were some of the reasons that as we went through our decision making and our visioning, that really helped us to understand what's the purpose, what's behind why we want to build. And Danielle had mentioned you can find these 2 particular tools on the website. And I'm just moving here. I don't know if people can see me holding up a book called the Project Assessment Tool and the Purpose Built Tool. And this is planning for Indigenous impact. And both of those tools, there's particular pages that in this presentation I'm going to highlight a little bit, but I want to share a little bit more of our story in the actual booklets, they're full of information. It's step by step, and it leads you to a really good process. Next slide, please. For us, again, it was so important to keep all community people involved. And one of the big things that we had done, again, as we started towards the feasibility of the project, we really felt it was important to have a variety of committees, including a housing advisory committee to the project, and then a number of subcommittees. So the people that you're looking at was actually the lady that is across from the computer. Her name is Bethany. She worked in housing, and she's a young woman from the community, had her first baby, is off on maternity leave right now, but still very much connected to the project and the work. And she continues to have the respect of community members, which really help us get buy-in from the community in every step of the way. One of the big things, and there's in one of the parts of the tool is talking about roles and responsibilities and how you actually set up having people involved in what they may want to do. In the back of the first planning tool, there's actually 2 or 3 pages that will give you templates of how you choose who you get internally as assets working on your project and who you may want to invite externally on your project to keep the assets. Next slide, please. In our case, our project team, our lead is Chris Jadis. He's also a band counselor, as well as having the title of Housing and Infrastructure Director. But he's a builder and a crab fisher, and Chris is about 40 some years of age and has a work ethic that he works at least 17 hours a day. So we felt that, again, when you have people in a community that work so hard, why would you not want to have them work more and more for ourselves to help the community even thrive more? The co-leads, myself, I mentioned our advisory board, and then we had a number of subcommittees. And on that slide, I put enter names here, and I thought to encourage each of you in your groups, when you look at who you might want to invite, who you may want to participate, to have on your committees and such, take a little time to think about that, because it may really help you. I mentioned that we applied for our project in August of 2019. When we did that, we hadn't used these tools, and we really underestimated what the cost of doing such a project would be. So again, coming back to an asset of our project team, when we had our advisory board, we included members both internally to the community and externally. So when we knew going from January 2020 on that we had X amount of dollars for the implementation stage, and we realized we didn't apply for enough money, we knew we needed to build a new road towards where we were going to actually build these homes. And we also realized we needed service going to those homes, water, septic, electricity, etc. So it was because of our partnerships and being able to network with other people that we invited to the table that actually the province of PEI made a contribution to our project, and they built us the road. And Indigenous Services actually helped us with the water and the infrastructure hookups. So it enabled us to keep within budget for the passive solar homes, and it's helping us to continue to make our dreams a real reality. But for a while, I'll tell you, we were kind of panicking, thinking, gosh, we're so short such an amount of money. So some of these tools, again, if I can encourage people, is the idea to take a really good look at them, and they're good for all projects. The next tool that I want to talk about is the project assessment tool. And on this assessment tool, it's actually a 4-quadrant graph. And if you would like to go to the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. This is called the project assessment tool. And now the next slide. you can see it's made up of 4 quadrants, and there's a circle that divides each topic, and each area has a topic that's specific, and also tasks that are required in each section. And you can actually use a rubric to rate whether it's a low, medium to high level of readiness as you move toward moving from the accelerator phase to actually the implementation phase. Next slide, please. So again, each quadrant is labeled from project readiness, from project design, project purpose. And as you look at each quadrant, you use almost a SCOT analysis, looking at your strengths, your challenges, your opportunities, and your threats. And this is a tool that really helps you figure out whether you are really low, moving towards that feasibility business plan to be able to move into the next phase, or if you're medium to high. And when you get all 4s, you really know that you're ready to go towards the implementation of the project. Again, when I mentioned about the SWOT analysis and how important that piece was, again, with the example I used about us really being scared that we didn't have enough money for this particular project and we needed that road built. Again, the leadership from this community, our band chief is also our band administrator. And again, because he sits on the big advisory committee and has positive relationships with the province of PEI, that ended up becoming a real strength, even though the threat was not having enough money to move the project ahead. Next slide, please. This slide is on project readiness. And again, I think I've talked quite a bit about our purpose, the project design and the project feasibility. And again, it's not so much that you can separate these areas to give focus, but they actually, and you think of that circle, are constantly interacting. And especially when you have a real project. Next slide, please. So again, under project purpose, and Danielle mentioned about the mentoring role that mentors had. Each project was attached to mentor. And again, our mentor was actually based out of Nova Scotia, not in our province of PEI, and COVID hit. And there was just a whole variety of things that made utilizing the relationship with the mentor a little bit more challenging. And at the same time, for us, as we looked at our own purpose of long-term wanting our own construction company, we really realized that we were really short more in construction training, on-time learning, on task at the construction site. So we had to make some decisions around, and again, using the quadrants, using the rubrics to rate whether we were at a 2 or a 3. We ended up in our project having to make a tough decision of not using our mentor as much as we originally thought we were going to, and put more resources and time towards the outcomes and the goals in that housing business that we wanted to have. Again, for us, it was that whole notion too that we really wanted to build passive solar homes. So again, going back to one of the strengths that we had with relationships with some of the people outside the community, and a person that lives in the community who actually is an engineer with expertise in solar. Next slide, please. This is in the area of design, and we wanted to talk a little bit about contracts and wording. One of the customs, or sort of the culture of this community, is we really had never used contracts. If we put out tenders or if we did business with people, once we decided what needed to be done, basically you'd send us an invoice and we'd pay for that. In this project, again, for us as lessons learned, we really wished we had more expertise in the area of contracts. And although our project is doing really, really well, where I think Danielle would probably say we're right on the border of moving from accelerator into implementation. And the one thing that's holding us back is the fact that if we had to have words in the contract hold our professional people to timelines. We had, for example, the design of our passive solar homes done 90% of the construction drawings, as well as 90% the Class B estimates. And that was back in March. And as of today, I'm still waiting to get 100% of the stamp drawings and the Class B estimates. And again, if we had more experience with contracts, I had to have written timelines and really tight relationship roles and stuff in the contract. That would have really, really helped us. I guess the only other kinds of things that I wanted to mention is with our community too, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So on that particular slide, go to the next slide, please. I put almost the same words up on this slide for lessons learned again. We talked and COVID was on, and the chief had done a variety of things using bingos, online bingos, Facebook. This again was back in March, April of last year to make sure we had community involvement. And we talked a lot about what great opportunities were coming around the homes. And it was amazing until people actually got to see the pictures of what a passive solar home looked like before people really started to believe, my gosh, they're actually going to do it. I really think that for us, utilizing these tools were really good, inviting more and more people from the community involved and sharing information back and forth really helps on the ownership of a project like this, but also building the confidence in a community like ours that's small and has never taken something like this on before. And I think the big thing the tools help you too is to know where you need to ask for help when you run into trouble. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, once we got the tools, we got some confidence and we decided we were going to go after other projects. So right now in our community, we've used the tools to help us in other ways. So for example, this month or in April, we started to build, and it's our own construction crew that's going to be building these homes too. They're called rapid homes. And we applied and were successful in funding to build 5 homes within the community. And we're really proud of that. The foundations are up, the walls are up, the construction's moving really, really nicely. And we hope to have, believe it or not, a house built within 3 months and a family move into that home in June. We're also building a brand new community commercial building. And again, it's a combination of having a project management team hard with us to help us with the tendering, but we're also going to be doing pieces of work on that build. We're building a new early learning center. The tenders are out for that right now, and they closed. They were supposed to close yesterday, but we have to extend it. It's closing on June the 3rd. And then we're really proud of the fact that we have an active transportation project that's worth $4.4 million to the community that's helping us build a tunnel underground to connect our community to the river across. Next slide, please. So that we just wanted to share a little bit about our community, talk about the tools and how we use them, and to really stress that if our little community can use them and take on big projects, any community can. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. I guess we're open up to questions. So if anybody has any questions, you can show through your video and then just put your hand up and we can call it, or we can do it through chat. Here we go. Mr. You have to unmute yourself there, Harry. You're muted.
This sounds wonderful. I'm so happy to hear Olive's experiences of how she went through this, how candid things that she knew and things she didn't know. Boy, that's the whole thing. What I want to know, because I'm with the Dakota Ojibwe Tribal Council, Olive, you have much to share with what one of our communities is doing. I'd love to have you get in touch with Councillor June Thomas at Roseau River. I think you both talk the same language and have the same aspirations. So how do we make a contact between?
That would be wonderful if you would send just a note to Danielle. She will connect us by email. And I am so old, I still watch Toronto Maple Leafs. And the other part is I would call her by phone.
Well, is it a rotary or press?
It's almost.
Well, I have to say we have a fellow named Larry Jones who's working with us on a Northern Technical Guide, and he's up in Whitehorse. No, sorry, Yellowknife. And we didn't realize he was late coming on a call, and we said, Larry, what happened? He said, well, you know, we all have rotary phones up here, so I had to go to the public library to ask for a phone that I could dial in for get a 1-800 call. And we had to go to 3 phones to realize one of them worked. So. All right. Any other questions? I have one. So Olive, I'm interested in the relationship from the inspection side. Who did your inspections and for code compliance, and how much of the resources did you use off reserve for code compliance, or were they all on reserve people?
Sure. We're not in the construction phase yet. The project team that we have that did the design as well as the engineering work will act as our project manager when we actually start the construction. So for example, on PEI, we respect the provincial regulations of Red Seal designation. So Michael, that's in the back, for example, is a Red Seal electrician. The plumber that we have brought back to community is a community member that's a Red Seal plumber. And again, at different phases as we complete different portions of the project management team will ensure that we're living up to national codes. And in the case of passive solar housing, we want to exceed the energy requirements on the homes as well.
Yeah, it's great. It's great that you have capacity, right? That's what a lot of the communities struggle with. So you're fortunate you had, members that were trained with Red Seal, which is very impressive. So that was great to use those. So
one of the assets that this community has is the fact that it's an unbelievable community for work ethic. So Michael, who's with me, who lives in the community, was working in the private sector and driving probably an hour one way in the morning and one way in the afternoon and working 12-hour days. So we were really lucky to be able to get him back. And one of the areas in our project that we were working on was the construction training program that we're going to implement for 3 years to bring 12 other community members up. And that's a partnership that we have with our province, our community college, and ourselves. And we're going to use a new software that's called Valid 8. And it's a particular certified program that help people get adjudicated on their skill level while building, because you're absolutely right. Not only do we have some capacity, but we want even more capacity in the community.
is that a provincial certification, that training? I never heard of that before.
It's actually a new training that's being used through our community college. When we have a Red Seal, that's a national Red Seal accreditation. The technology with Validate was built in the private sector, and there's a First Nation community, I believe in Manitoba, that piloted and used it. But it's tremendous because a lot of people in this community, like other communities, school was not positive. So while people are actually working and building, the Validate system uses smartphone technology and can record what a person's doing. And then there's Red Seal people that actually look at that and are able to give recommendations as to what also needs to be taught before the person's accredited towards training. And then our community college will be actually on site.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to follow up with you more on that because we're launching in the next few months an Indigenous contractors corner. And that's exactly what we're hoping to do, is to encourage contractors to, go for Red Seal or get the required capacity, because our challenge, inspectors find poorly built homes, so they'll build them. So whereas our emphasis will now be more on towards contractors and encouraging proper training. So I'll follow up with you more on that.
A question for you. I know when your initial proposal was for a multi-unit passive solar complex, but what you're building now is actually, I think, three individual units. Can you tell us a little bit about how that change came about and how the tools might have supported that change, or how those decisions shifted throughout the accelerator?
Sure. Prior to, when we put the first proposal in, Chris and I had an idea, and we thought we had quite a few solutions. So we put the proposal in, and we were probably really shocked that we were chosen. And then in terms of, again, in January, when we spent the 4 days in Vancouver, it was really wonderful because it was like being at school, but in a very comfortable way. So the tools themselves, especially the project assessment tool, really got us to drill down more and more. And when I said, we ended up using a lot of different, I call them advisory committees or committees. And as we started to think more about the purpose of what we wanted as the outcome and some of the real issues in the community of overcrowding and such, it ended up that the community input was more that they wanted individual homes rather than a multi-use complex. And again, for us, on trying to not only respect when you invite community members to come in and have ownership, but you got to show that you listen. So in terms of, again, both in the areas of the project purpose and around the feasibility piece, we started to, we ended up, our architects had come up with 4 different designs using the multi-unit home in a couple of different ways, and then the individual homes. And in the end, it ended up, what was chosen was the 3 individual homes.
Olive, Claude here. I have a question regarding, you mentioned issues with contracts in the wording. Is this simply an issue of it being too simple or not technical enough, such as the CCDC, Canadian Construction Document Committees, these pre-established contract documents that are out there that probably could be modified in order to, we'll say, tighten up the quality and workmanship of the builds?
Sure. For a lot of us, Claude, I think was one, we didn't have experience building a capital asset like this before. So when we did good project work and stuff, we were dealing with projects that are worth $20,000, $30,000. We, again, are a community that's small, and we all have 2 or 3 jobs. So we really didn't even know what we didn't know. So again, it was one of those tools that are probably out there, but until you run into the experience with it, you don't realize how important it is. And the contract piece for me now is one of those areas that both Chris and I want to be more familiar with what's out there, customize them better for our use, but actually use contracts because again, we're a small community, and even in the province of PEI, there's a lot of people that just go with a handshake and just go with, we spend a lot of time on reading the wording for our tender, but it's another piece that to me we were weak on, and looking back, that's an area that we still could benefit from more support on.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have, sorry, Claude.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I like what you're telling us, because that's an issue, I think, from coast to coast to coast. And we run into it a lot from contractors, taking on project with First Nation, say, well, what contracts do we use? And on the other side, a lot of the community are saying, well, we're not sure what contracts. We actually have a webinar. I sent out a note on the June 10th that the Canadian Canadian Construction Document Center that puts out the standards for contracts will be giving a webinar just on this topic of use of contracts and modification. It's a huge issue, and I know we did a topic on procurement, and just contract maintenance and maintaining them is a real challenge.
Yeah, and I'm sure other First Nation communities, especially the smaller ones in the East Coast, like I showed you a picture of our crab boat. Our guys are used to getting on that boat at 4 o'clock in the morning, sailing out 6 hours out in the ocean, fishing all day, staying overnight and coming in. But doing the business processes, we don't have a lot of experience in that. I'm laughing. Mikey yesterday and myself were putting out bees for our wild blueberry farm. We know how to do those things. It's the work business processes that, as we're gaining more experience and more help and learning what we don't know, it's helping us move to the next level. And I have a funny feeling other First Nation communities are probably similar to us.
Quick question. I have a quick question. With the building codes, because I know provinces to provinces always change, right? When we do our proposals, I'm always asking for the max building code. I don't settle for the minimum building codes. I would love to build platinum, but I always say, if you can dream big, dream big. But see, that's another issue too, not only with the contracts, but with the building codes. Why is it that building codes change differently from province to province, not only from province to province, but from municipalities to reserves? Building codes and building quality. That's another big issue. Thank you.
Valerie, maybe to address your comment, there is a movement forward across the country to look at what's called an international building code, more or less kind of, we'll call it a moderation of putting all the building codes together across even North America, and certainly representing, we'll call it different zones. John was talking about, certainly when we look at areas such as the extremes in the north versus certainly the extremes in the south of the US. So there's different code requirements, but I think there's a movement forward to try and harmonize those building codes to make life simpler for all of us, regardless.
So that we're all building quality.
Yeah, and the other important thing too is, as we know, not everyone in all districts, as you indicated, subscribe to the same building code. Even in the province where I am, Ontario, I live down in the balmy south of Windsor, Ontario, and what they do in Toronto and what they do in Windsor, 4 hours apart, is totally different as far as enforcement is concerned. We live and build to the building codes, but it's not always, we'll call it, fair representation of what it should be and what should be represented on any build. So it's, you really raise a great point. Harry?
Well, I'm reminded, we're talking about building codes. I have an architect friend who tells me that the building code is the worst possible thing you could get away with. It's the bottom of the line. That kind of gives me a perspective. Yeah, well, you know, you could maybe ask for more than what the minimum code requires.
Harry, my response to that is we call it the minimum legally required building standard for the country. But it really is minimum. And is it Val or Valerie? Really, you raise a good point. We can always build better, but certainly there's also that cost implication of a little thicker plywood or a little better, we'll call it wood stud in the framing of a wall. Certainly there's that cost implication. So
Oh, and a fair process. Sorry, and a fair process. You know, common sense, fair process. That's all we ask for.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Good comments. Well, we've developed a procurement process on our, if you go to the FNNBOA, helping to guide that process in terms of, you know, hiring contractors, asking for the specific standards that the community wants, building beyond building code and insisting on that as part of your, you know, your technical standards. Because one of the problems that exist is if you ask for windows, well, they're going to give you windows from Southern Ontario. They're not going to give you windows for your climate zone area. And that's really what we're trying to push as well, is be aggressive, asking for those specifics in your areas. But raise a very valid point, Valerie. Thanks. Okay, any other comments? I just look at the chat. So we just have sharing of information among people on templates. Ken offered some templates, so that's good. Any further comments before we close up here? I gotta keep on flipping my screen to find everybody. So,
Well, I think in summary, when I look at it, John, and to our group here today, I think we share a lot of same common interests, and it's somehow, I think, beneficial through these webinars to open up in dialogue and certainly communicate about the issues that we all seem to share. Certainly, everybody looks forward to better builds, certainly on not just off reserve land, but certainly First Nation lands also, in all communities in general.
yeah. Now I can get copies of those because I know Harry grabbed his Sherlock Holmes magnifying glass to look at one of the documents. We can get copies of those documents, I assume, Danielle, that we can share, or I can cross-reference with your website.
Both, and I did send them, and I'll re-forward them again. There's English and French for both documents.
Okay, so we can make sure everybody gets a copy on when we send out the documents. So
Yeah, you can also download them from the iHigh Circle website. They're
Okay.
posted there, and you can just go in English or French.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll make sure people get that link as well. So, okay. Any last comments?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I'm here in BC, and I think I will say, why are we doing the same thing we did 20 years ago and it's not working? Right? So that, you know, the government has their agenda, we have an agenda. Let's create our own agenda. The building code, as you referenced to, is a minimum standard. And thing needs to be re-examined as regional, West Coast regional, East Coast regional, interior regional. It just doesn't work for us here in BC. And you know that you have an opportunity here to develop something, a building standard for yourself beyond the building code. Utilize materials that are sustainable, affordable, and still meet the step code. That's what they're doing here in BC, but building that capacity, using our own resources to do it. Nobody comes in their community and builds in where we do all the building beyond the building code. And FNNBOA standards are beyond the building code, beyond the HBO, BOABC, any other code that was developed. So yeah, so let's move forward with change. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Richard. And Richard, Richard's actually produced some excellent documents out in BC. Richard, if I can get you to send those to me as well, if you wish, and I can share them with the group, because I think you've been doing some excellent work, especially, you know, accommodating the weather, the wet weather that you guys have. So I think it's really excellent stuff that you're producing at that part of the world. So please share.
Yeah, there's we've created a building standard booklet for homes that meet the step code 3 and 4. These homes have all the challenges that we have as First people: interior design concepts, structural design concepts, standardization of rooms, making it affordable, energy efficient, mold resistant. All these challenges I saw on the West Coast here, I incorporated into this booklet. And all the part of the booklet we're recreating as a cultural component, where it was common for me to walk on the West Coast and see them boiling water in a home that's completed with drywall. Doesn't work. So we incorporated different uses, different materials. We developed conditioned crawl spaces. We developed conditioned attic spaces. We developed approved heating systems that minimize cost. Our homes now used to cost us $12 to $15 a day, are costing now $1.50 a day. But this booklet, we started the second part of the program. So once it's released, I'm open to share it. In my background was I'm Red Seal carpenter, and I inspected 6,000 to 7,000 homes here in BC. Looked at this concept of developing a standard for ourselves in BC. But the booklet will be a template for you to follow, and you can develop it for your community. So I don't know how it's affordable to go passive house design like here in BC at $700 a square foot. But we're building here in Bella Coola right now at $110 to $160 a square foot.
Yeah, that's a good price. Yeah.
Richard, maybe just to back up a moment, just explaining that what you really refer to as STEP, because maybe not everybody here understands actually what the STEP process is.
The STEP code is air tightness. What Canada is referring to, by 2036, your energy, your home has to meet the STEP code. Anything developed has to meet the STEP code, energy efficiency overall. What that means is that the air exchange. So if you imagine a home today built, which is unconditioned, if you put all air leakage in the home, it'd probably be by 5x5 window shape. But today now we're with the STEP code reaching 3 and 4 in BC here, the whole amount of air infiltration is probably a 7-inch by 10-inch square. So it's more efficient. And at the same time, with the model that we built, the use of HRVs and fans are good, but how is it affordable for people that cannot afford? They have to decide do I pay my bills or do I buy food? So we're introducing more concepts like natural ventilation, undercutting doors, louver doors, 2 windows in the bedroom, but things more simplified, not layering 20 inches insulation outside wall with a passive design. I said, how is that affordable for First people? I don't know. But I'm a builder and I build over 120 homes, but now I'm designing homes for First people. And BC has got some cutting edge, like John said, but it's all coming together. I don't know, I'm glad to share some of this stuff with John, and he can forward it out once we get it complete. I think we'll be complete in the middle of next year. This COVID thing's putting us a harness on us like everybody else and stopping progress.
Richard, I think with regards to the STEP, the STEP code process, a lot of it really boils down to energy and certainly better builds of homes. And actually the building codes, I guess the revisions to the building code, you think about things like climate change and the impact of our changing environment. This all has to do with, again, updating building codes to reflect, I guess, better energy efficiency in general across Canada. So I think it impacts all of us. So again, thank you, Richard, for your comments.
It does affect all of us, and you know, by creating this formula, what you're doing, we're doing it at a better cost. It still meets the step code. Using more sustainable materials, and utilizing what resources we have in BC here. Like we have our own gravel pit, we're using our own mill to cut lumber. We're using all our guys, our own community members. Like what's your name said there. The lady that did that presentation, kudos for you, man. That's a real big step forward, because nothing sustains us in this community, and in this Indigenous Service Canada closes the door. How are we going to support our people? How are we going to build that capacity to support our people? You know, I always say we need to get the education system to support the trade so we can build our own community, build our own nation.
Thanks, Richard. Richard, I'm going to keep on working on you to give a seminar in March. So I'm going to keep on haranguing you. So anyway, I think this is actually excellent. I appreciate Olive for taking the time, and Danielle and Elizabeth for sharing the information. I just received an email, so I'll forward it to everybody. When I get the booklets from Richard, or the one book, I might even have it, but I'll get the update. We'll share that as well. And that's it. And tomorrow we have 2 sessions on defect recognition, which will be quite enjoyable. Harry, you're going to need your magnifying glass, because I think we have lots of pictures you have to look at. So anyway, thanks everyone, and we'll talk tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.